Welcome. Welcome, everybody, to the Africa that we deserve. Today, I have the great honor and pleasure to be here with Dr. Sunday Joseph Otengho. This is going to be a really great and fabulous show. First off, in order to do anything properly, for me, I like to start off and just ask the ancestors to bless us. Ask all that who are out there, who are our supporters, friends, families, and colleagues, to raise yourselves up and give prayer and thanks for another day of being here this Sunday, for tuning in, and a chance to actually build the Africa we deserve. Without further ado, I definitely want to bring our guest into the studio today, so we can begin this conversation. My brother and my friend, Dr. Otengho, thank you for joining today. Totally appreciate this.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Fabulous. You have a new book out.
Yes, I have a new book called The Analysis for the Importance of Swahili as the National Language of Africa.
And where can we find that book?
Oh, you can find the book on Amazon and also on my website, which is advanceafrica.com. And also you can write an order for a personal copy from me. So it is on Amazon, actually worldwide.
Fantastic. So do tell us, Africa is and her people are.
Well, Africa is the second largest continent and hosting over 1,000 ethnicities with over 2,000 different languages, with 1.2 billion people. And who are they? They are united in their desire to build the Africa they want and the African they deserve, without any outside influence or outside persuasion, but having an Africa that is self-reliant and self-resilient, that answers their own identity and redefinition of their culture.
How powerful is that? Just to have that kind of conversation. Your book really delves into the Africa we deserve. Let's hear a bit about your book.
Well, actually, the book was, the beginning of the book was started when I was an instructor of Kiswahili with the International Baccalaureate program in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And what was so amazing was that when kids started coming to my class and everybody was called Smith and the other one was called Lawrence and the other one was called this, and said, no. You're going to learn Swahili, but also I'm going to give you an African name. So I started giving them an African name. And each one I gave them an African name and told them what the meaning was of the name. And it would be amazing the transformation that took place in the lives of these kids and the desire they had to learn, because now they had a name they could defend that had meaning, that anchored them into their original identity with Africa. And out of it, I saw the groping of a community that needed an identity, a redefinition of who they were. And that is how it was born. And then, of course, with a whole conversation about a united Africa, there was no reason we would not come up with a language like Swahili. First of all, that was not attached to any ethnic group and was totally African, even though it had a few other elements of foreign language, but it was totally African, with African values, traditions, and culture touching every part of the continent. And so I was excited about writing that book.
I am excited that you wrote this book, and it's such an honor. One of the first and only people that I know that holds 2 doctorate degrees. So is Dr. Sunday Joseph Otengho PhD. Just to let all of our listening audiences, so many people in America right now are at home with their children going to school. And so Dr. Otengho is an example of what is possible through education, what is possible and what is absolutely right with Africa. I want to dive a bit more into the questions, dive into your thought process about uniting Africa and the Africa that we deserve. the International Institute is on a campaign, as you know, to bring, let me put it this way, establish 1 million jobs in the continent of Africa, united with continental Africans by 2030. And in order to do this, there's many opportunities available to us, but there's some challenges along the way. And if we look at those challenges, some it might be language, it might be culture and customs. So help us understand, the listening audience here, what does language acquisition, what opportunities does that hold for the diaspora returning and joining forces to build the economic engine of Africa?
Actually, first of all, thank you for the question. First of all, language on a very practical level is simply a formation of symbols, sounds, and gestures for the purpose of communication. So it can work as a medium of communication. But then on a deeper level, language is embedded within a cultural roots, which are the expressions of our values, our traditions, our beliefs, our religion, everything that identifies us as humans or individuals. And therefore, having a language is very, very important. Now, it becomes especially important for the African of the diaspora. Why? When you look at the context of their upbringing within the Western Hemisphere, that the first thing the enslaver took away from the African of the diaspora was their name, their culture, their religion, their beliefs, and their God. And so what did that do? It took away everything that made them human, everything that would bring them cohesion as a community, as a family, as a people, with aspirations and having something that identifies them. So by now coming to Africa, you remember that in the past we have had the groping, of course, of the African American, and especially here we created the Kwanzaa to try to connect back to Africa. Right. Some of us have taken on African names to try to connect back to Africa. The only link missing is language. And the thing I've said in my persuasion is I believe that the African American actually stands the opportunity to do what? To unify Africa. Why? Because Africa is embedded within a multiplicity of languages. We think about almost 2,500 languages on the continent, with 1,000 ethnicities. Most of us are born in all this complex culture, which has also become a barrier of our unity. But even though it was not a blessing that actually the diaspora had their names and culture all taken away, yet now they don't hold the very complex ideas of division that still hold us behind on the continent.
Sure.
So there's going to be the development of Africa, there's going to be a unity of Africa, is because the African of the diaspora is now blessed with a language through which they can communicate, which anchors them back into the continent, and which allows them to become totally identified and able to live on their rights and basis without the definition of anybody from outside the continent.
That's power. That's power. I mean, the concept that you're talking about is completely holding power for yourself and self-actualization and sovereignty. There's been a few meetings that I have been in, and it's been remarkable to have a conversation start in one particular language, and then people join in with more local languages, and there's 3 or 4 languages being spoken at one time, but everyone is understanding each other, and that is the beauty and the power that we can bring back. I believe that's the opportunity that we hold here. Let's get a little bit deeper into that. Let's look at it from, we have language acquisition. How does this language, holding a common language, holding this concept, play into a united Africa? What is that about? Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, I think we are working within a framework that has already been given to us. Remember, the idea of PanAfricanism was not started on the continent of Africa. It was totally started by the diaspora. people like Brother Martin Delaney and Cromwell and Blyden and Padmore, going to who, to W.D. Du Bois, Brewster Williams, all of them who influenced our ancestors, the Nkrumahs, the Kenyattas, and everybody, to bring about the unity of Africa. That was the desire of our people, that Africa will be united. And because of that unity, when you think about a continent that has all the vast natural resources in the world, that has land that is so fertile that it could feed the whole population for almost 1,000 years. Okay,
yes.
I mean, Africa is endowed with everything that the world needs. And remember that Africa is the only continent that never moved. Okay, all the other, according to Pangea theory, all the others moved away, but Africa stayed intact in terms of its geology, in terms of everything that is supposed to make it great. So the unity of Africa makes it very easy for us now to work as one. Remember, apart from it, when you talk about languages, on top of the complexity of those languages, 2,500 of them, yet we added on the foreign languages like English, French, and Portuguese.
Yes.
And lately, Chinese is coming in.
Very,
all right?
very quickly.
Okay. Very quickly. Especially when you have now a Chinese being made a chief in some place in Ghana. You know that we are in real trouble if that is what is happening. But again, when that came about, what happened in terms of unity? It divided us even further, because now we all refer to ourselves as Anglophones and Francophones and Lusophones and who else phone we're going to get in the future. So when we're able to have something that unifies us in terms of a language of communication where we can be able to work together in the integration agenda, we have a way to succeed. Now, the African Union, and you and I can agree, whether some people agree or not, but you and I can agree that the African Union presents the framework for the integration of Africa. We're going to be talking about the positive things that are happening on the continent. Absolutely. To help us understand, away from misinformation and away from misguidance. Okay.
Totally. With that being said, we're going to stop for a quick commercial break here, and we'll be back with Dr. Sunday Joseph Otengho on the show of The Africa That We Deserve. Be right back. And we're back. Thank you for tuning back in to the Africa That We Deserve. We're having a bit of technical difficulties today on this show. Not too sure what's happening there with the design, with the engineers. I'm gonna have to talk to them about that. So we're back here. I thank everybody for tuning back in to this conversation. This conversation is the powerful conversation. It really delves into the concept of sovereignty, and sovereignty through language, and how that plays a role in creating a united Africa with a diaspora full of unity, Africa that has unity, and it plays a role in the economic framework of where we want to go as the people. I want to dive into that because we are looking to build a platform that creates an opportunity for legacy wealth. Perhaps not for you and I, but for the children and children that will come from us. And that conversation is completely We're having a lot of technical difficulties today. I'm not sure why we're having all of this this difficulty. And that conversation needs to happen on a platform that we understand what's the economic impact when we have language, unified language together with the diaspora. What does that bring for us?
Well, actually, the first thing I think I want to say, the framework that has been set up on the continent, and refer back to the African Union Agenda 23. And what EU did was divide Africa within Africa in 5 regions, and then the 6th region is the diaspora. And there's requiring that collective idea of us actively being engaged in the development of our continent. Not only as we have been told in the past that it was brain drainage. We are no longer a brain drain for Africa. We are a brain gain. We are coming back home to make sure that our resources, our energies, our expertise, things we have learned from outsiders, overseas people, coming back home to make that happen. And I know that there are difficulties on the continent, but Agenda 623 calls about integration. And out of integration, we have already realized the idea of the free trade zone. Africa trading with Africans. And with the free trade zone comes the idea of communication, the infrastructure. Remember, the Industrial Revolution did not take place until the canals and the railroads had been built. And Africa is doing that right now as we speak. In Kenya, the first railway is already moving. The ECOWAS, it is moving. In the Magharibi, in the north, there is a fast trading and the connecting city to city. You can imagine the amount of impact that is on trade, because right now, Africa trades only 15% with itself and 85% outside. In the future, Africa is going to be able to trade among itself. And part of the problem in Africa was the infrastructure of transportation. Because when you think about goods coming from Mombasa to Accra, taking almost a month or 2 months, 3 months, that is not good business. But now that integration is taking place, you can imagine getting goods in Mombasa and going to Accra and only taking 2.5 days or 3 days. The mobility and movement of goods and people and ideas is what causes development and growth. So that is happening. And we as African diaspora, we are plugging in. Now, some have said, well, how can we plug in on the entire continent? You can plug in and invest in Ghana, or invest in Nigeria, or invest in Kenya. When you invest in Kenya, in Nigeria, or Sierra Leone, and making that development, Africa is developing. Because when you're here, for example, in the US, if you invest in Georgia, or in Virginia, or in California, the whole USA is experiencing growth because of what's happening in those places. And that's the idea of unity. And that language, the communication language, brings up the barriers of the multiplicity of languages that we have, that we're able, therefore, to communicate. That you coming from the diaspora don't have to learn all the 2,000 languages in Africa in order to trade, but you already have Kiswahili. And then, of course, they kept English and, French and that kind of stuff as well. But you have a language that you can communicate in and be able to understand, and be able to understand the values, the traditions, the beliefs, and the knowledge that comes out of the richness of African culture. And that is the role language is going to play. Okay. And African Americans, African Americans endowed in every way. Not only African Americans, but you have the Afro-Caribbeans. Remember, they're the diaspora. The Afro-Brazilians, the Afro-Colombians, and Haitians, and everybody out there of African descent. We are coming home, and we're coming home to make a difference.
So what's the way forward? What's the right next step in a business sense that the diaspora, those Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Ecuadorians, Afro-Colombians, those that are spread out in Europe and Germany, otherwise, what's the right next business step that we can take today regarding both language, building the sovereignty of Africa through language and through economics in order to build the Africa we deserve?
Actually, the first thing we need to do is get connected to the continent. And of course, the best framework, of course, in terms of connection, are the individual organizations such as yourself and others in reaching out to build entities in Africa in different places, is to agitate for position on the African Union Parliament, so that we have a voice, and the making a reality of the Region 6 office here as an organized entity, to advocate for the ideas and the resources and all the knowledge that we have acquired to have an impact on the continent. Because we can have 1,000 different ideas and 1,000 different organizations, but unless there's that unity, and I'll give an example of our Jewish brothers. They have so many different organizations that take care of the needs of the Jew. But when it comes down to it for Israel, they are connected and united. It doesn't matter which organization you belong to. So as we allow some entity within the creation of Region 6 office here in the in the diaspora, we are able to manage our resources and be able to go on the continent without fear or being cheated. And of course, you talk about corruption and all these things that happen. But when we have one body that is giving the regulations for our trade on the continent, especially in terms of the idea that we're creating one currency, which is coming. And people say, oh, it has taken so long. Remember that Agenda 2063 was only passed January 31, 2015. It's only not more than 5 years old. Yet we expect it to have been 100 years. So we need one currency is going to work as a people. Africa is creating one passport for its people. So when you're talking about the idea of how to belong to Africa, how to go and visit Africa, if we have an African passport, it does not matter, because
and how would the diaspora take part in that passport? Because often in conversations and circles, people look at me and say, and you know what's coming, Dr. Otengho, you an African? How so? How could it be? So how could the diaspora, people who are abroad but are connected both heart and soul and in bloodline, take part in that?
Well, actually, the good thing is that the African Union, Agenda 23, begins by saying, we, the people of Africa and its diaspora, united in our diversity, desire to bring our resources and manage them together to create a self-reliance and self-determination for our people with a development that is paid by us. So the agenda includes you and I, all over the world. Mm-hmm. So anybody who says that does not understand what is happening on the continent. And we may say that, oh, our leaders are inefficient and they're this and the other. But God bless Africa, that out of that chaos or inefficiency, we have an entity going on that is being put together as a framework to address the past injustices and the development that is ahead. So places also, the individual countries like Ghana are inviting and giving land to Africans of the diaspora. And we know that is a fever that's going to catch on the rest of Africa. Yes. Okay, in terms of coming home, there are so many other things that are happening on the continent that are making this happen. The other idea that is being put together by an organization called The Voice is the desire of the kingdoms, of the kings coming together to provide land for the Africans of the diaspora. So there's so many things happening and people are simply not informed. And as they get informed, we know they are going to see the positivities of what's happening, the role we're going to play, whether you are Afro-Caribbean or African-American, Canadian, Afro-Brazilian, whoever you are. The Agenda 26 says that we, the people of Africa and its diaspora, we are united in a desire to redefine, reconstruct, redevelop, and create an African we want or the African we deserve.
And we deserve it all.
Oh,
We
yes,
deserve it
we
all.
do.
And you are
Yeah.
you're here in America, but you have roots in several African nations, and you're doing a great amount of work. How can and what is the opportunity before our listening audience to partner up with you, and the opportunity for the International Institute to partner up with you to do work in the continent?
Actually, we have a website. My organization is called Association for the Advancement of Africa, and we're heavily geared towards, first of all, the propagation of the Agenda 2063, but also the development in terms of creating a curriculum that is enabling and gives liberation to our youth on the continent. Education being very important, because the models of education we have on the continent reached diminishing returns back in the 80s. So that now we have our college graduates swallowing in place with degrees that are so useless. They cannot get a job because the curriculum is not connected to the labor market, not to the economic capacity of the country. When you have a young continent like Africa, that is 60%, 60% youth between 15 and 25, 60%, you know that you have a bomb that is either waiting to explode, as these young people waiting what they have called the wasteland,
Yeah.
and are dying in the Mediterranean seas trying to find
Absolutely.
places and so forth. They're coming to places where they're discriminated against. When we have a continent that can accommodate their needs, hire them. And what you're doing, my sister, with the idea of Vision 2030, and you know Kenya has Vision 2030, and they
Yes,
are
we do.
honestly going hard at it. And so, say you're going to create 1 million jobs, how powerful is that? Because you have a vision, we have a vision, and we don't just have a vision in terms of dreaming. A vision is being implemented, and people may not see opportunities, but they are available on the continent. So we ask, it's not my desire that everybody jumps on the wagon of my organization, but rather whichever organization you belong to, make sure that your knowledge, your resources, your belief, and your desire for Mother Africa makes an impact in this generation, to prepare a generation for the future that is not going to be identified by anybody else or defined by anybody else, by its own people. And that is where I stand.
That is terrific. That is wonderful. So I'll put out to our listening audience, for those who are interested in educational opportunities, in creating a platform and a framework through education, we have Dr. Sunday Joseph Otengho here, who hails from Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya.
Yes.
When I was like, how is that possible? That's possible because he is connected to his people, being born on the continent, having the languages of all the lands, and coming here to the United States to further and advance his education, staying connected in Atlanta, Georgia, and throughout the United States, supporting and working with hand on hand with the diaspora in order to uplift ourselves, because we're one people, and working steadfastly towards uplifting Africa at the same time. We always like to close out the conversation here with what's right with Africa. We spend a lot of time by design, perhaps, videos, commercials showing Africa as Tarzan and Jane, as backwards, as dark, as poverty-stricken. Every time I go to the continent, there are opportunities. There's a beautifulness that that is indescribable. That when I have to leave, I cry. I do not want to come back home. So Dr. Otengho, what is right with Africa?
What is right with Africa is its people, and what is happening on the continent. And we know that they have said that Africa to be devastated by poverty and sicknesses and the worst thing that you can think about in life, backwardness and so forth. There's still people, as I've taken some groups to Africa, both white and African and African diaspora. And when they land in Nairobi, they don't believe they have left New York yet. Why? Because of the misinformation, which began back with philosophers like Immanuel Kant, Thomas Aquinas, and everybody who said Africans were black. Now, I have bad news for some people right today who believe that way. Because there are no black people on the continent of Africa. There are no black people anywhere in this world other than those who have been defined by outsiders on a racist measure. When you go to Africa, you find the Kikuyu, the Yoruba, the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Oromo, the Baba, the Tagiri, a lot, 2,000 to 1,000 of them. So we cannot be reduced to a color. Just as in Europe, you don't find white people in Europe. You find the English, the Germans, and everybody else. So we have to get away from the mind of having been called black and then coined words that were so negative about our people. We are African, and we're going to stay that way. There's a lot going on with Africa in the sense that integration is taking place on the continent. Okay, we are creating one currency. We are creating one military command. We are creating one bank. We are creating one economic system. We are creating one passport, for heaven's sake. We already have a free trade zone going on the continent. We have so much going for us. And the Agenda 2063 says we are uniting, considering the past injustices to correct them so that we can forge forward to create the Africa we deserve and the Africa we want. That is what's right with Africa. It's no longer jungles and Tarzan. Okay, we have, of course, a diversity of the continent, but our cities are just as diverse as anywhere. Even though CNN and all these other National Geographic and so forth don't show our city sky, our skylines. We as Africans know better because we are developing, and give us a few years, we'll be fine. Remember, if as I close, when after the Civil War, what was the condition of the African, of the diaspora in America? Okay, it was so bad. And then after that, enjoyed about 20 years of freedom. Then Jim Crow came in for 100 years and caused our people to stay behind. But see how far the African American has come in 60 years. During the same time, Europe decided also to start colonialism in Africa and partitioned Africa. And since 1888 or 87 until the 1960s, Africa was in bad shape. And we have gone so far in 60 years. Give us a few more years and you see what we can do to make Africa the place that we deserve and the place that we want. Mother Africa is crying for you. It doesn't matter whether you have 1 ounce of African blood or how many ounces of any other culture. In America, they say when you have just 1 ounce, guess what? You are African. 1 drop, you're African.
1 drop.
We are African, and we're going to be that way. Africa is diverse. The Ethiopians don't look like the Zulu. They don't look like Congolese. They don't look like the Algerians. But guess what? It's all African. So it doesn't matter the shade of your color that stays right here when you cross the Atlantic. You cross the Atlantic, you are an African. You are looked at as a person, not defined by the color of your skin. And that's where we're going. That is what's right with Africa right now.
Yes. I want to let everybody know who is listening and watching in our viewing audience, what's right with Africa is you. You are right with Africa. There's an opportunity that we have before us to join together through a network for business, for opportunity, to build legacy wealth, to support the development of Africa on the continent. We have Dr. Sunday Otengho here with us. He is going back to do work within the continent. He and I are part of several networks together. Do join us. Do join the opportunity that is before us to bring forward 1 million jobs on the continent of Africa so that we can lift ourselves. We are the people we have been searching for. We are the people that we need. Dr. Sunday Joseph Otengho, thank you so much for coming on today's show. I so super appreciate the time that I've had with you today.
Yes, thank you so much, my sister, for allowing us the opportunity to have a conversation. And all I can say is Viva Africa. We are growing and uniting. Thank you.
Thank you. Until next time,